William.
Hi, William.
Shabir.
I'm Shabir.
Only decent,
How are you? Are
very
you-
decent guy.
I'm interested in ideas.
Ideas.
Just
I
want to talk
agree
about
with you.
ideas, for sure.
No. Juices? Any juice?
Would you like?
I'm good.
Would you like some? You know how this is, William. sorry.
Yeah, William. Yeah.
You know how it is. Have a conversation, and I'm standing here and thinking, okay, what are we going to have a conversation
I've
about?
got a nice Scottish accent.
And we can talk.
That's the only thing I
You only liked about that? Oh, sad times. Well, we can talk, sure. So let's see. What's your purpose for being in Speaker's Corner?
Well, usually it is to talk to people about primarily the existence of a creator,
Okay.
and if there is a creator, was there any message that the creator sent? And if there was, what would that be?
Okay.
Now, as a Muslim, I will contend that Islam in totality is basically the same as it was thousands of years ago when Jesus came, when Moses came. Basically, what we would consider to be prophets, they brought Islam with them, and it culminated in the coming of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and that was about it.
Oh, is it on camera?
Yes, yeah.
Aye.
It's okay. So, Alhamdulillah, are you okay? Yeah, Alhamdulillah. Yeah, so basically it's an exchange of ideas.
For sure.
And we can go home after we have agreed and disagreed.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Many questions about religion.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if this is an easy question to answer, maybe not. But what convinced or convinces you about the existence of God?
Right. Basically, when as an individual, yeah, on a personal note, yeah, before we go on to what I would consider to be objective evidence, yeah, on a personal note, I used to be happy-go-lucky. Two things that occupied my life. One was to become the next Bruce Lee. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. One was to become him, and the second was to become a professional footballer.
Okay.
So objectives were there, and I would wake up at 6 in the morning, go running, do the necessary training, and thankfully I reached a certain stage, yeah, where I was ready to go into open competitions, karate and kung fu.
Okay.
Yeah, had signed on schoolboy forms also for Blackburn Rovers. We come from Blackburn.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Then something happened in life which totally, I mean, those two objectives that I had totally went out of the window.
Okay.
Okay. And I, for the first time, this was around age 19 or 20.
Right.
For the first time, I asked the question, what am I doing here?
Right. All right.
Yeah. You know those odd times in life when we suddenly want to ask certain questions?
Yeah. Self-reflection.
Yes. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, what is life about? Yeah. And if I end it tomorrow, will anybody miss me?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I certainly cannot accept the idea that I only came to jump off a building. Yeah. So it was not only introspection, reflection, self-reflection, but then I thought, wait a minute, okay, I'm here now, I really need to know. And it was months and months of thinking. By now, the football went out of the window, the martial arts went out of the window.
Yeah.
I started losing a lot of weight also, yeah. And months down the line, I thought to myself, wait a minute, there has to be more to life than this. There
Right,
has
okay.
to be, yeah. I was brought up in a Muslim family, and what was considered to be customary for us to do, we did, yeah. But it wasn't until I started reflecting that I realized, why am I doing all this?
Right.
Yeah. And for the next 15 odd years, I undertook a course of study that encompassed basically
Into Islam.
not only Islam, into all the major religions,
Okay.
also into what we would consider to be science and what science had to say. But the one common thread in all this was my view that people talk about a creator. That is what led me to the study.
Okay.
Yeah, people talk about a creator, but I can't see him.
Yeah.
Yeah. How would I actually establish there is a creator? Yeah. All my studies, yeah, led me to one conclusion, that if there was a creator,
Yeah.
then logically speaking, I would not
Beautiful. You got a double mic.
I would not be able to locate him in the natural world.
Right. Okay.
Illogical, my view is. But at the same time, I'm thinking, wait a minute, if I have nothing in the natural world to establish the existence of a creator, how then do I know there is a creator?
Okay.
Now, my logic was leading me to a certain destination. That being, okay, now I have confidently convinced myself that a creator, if there is one, is certainly not to be found in the natural world.
Okay.
Agreed.
Right.
Well, if he is not to be found in the natural world, how then am I going to establish the existence of a creator?
Right.
Second step came. Logically speaking, if there is a creator, yes, and the definition, I use the word definition, of a creator is one who is all powerful, one is the one who created everything. I said, well, if that is the case, then logic is dictating to me that in contrast to a creator, I would necessarily be the inferior one.
Right.
Yeah, not in a negative way, okay, but I would be inferior because I am in the position of not knowing everything, in opposition to this being who knows everything, according to the understanding. But if that is the case, then it also logically applies why I cannot find him in the natural world in the physical form.
Right.
Yeah, not the signs that we would consider, but in the physical form, I can't find him.
Okay.
Fine. Now, the next step, if there is a creator, then necessarily there must be a communication from the creator to the human being.
Right.
I'm restricting it to the human being, yeah?
Okay.
There has to be. And if there is, where is it?
Okay.
And if it did come, not only do I need to find it, I need to then assess what it has which other writings or other sayings of sages will not have.
Right. Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So, second process came in. You now are looking at the contenders, yeah? And that is what I did. I mean, there are many minor ones, okay? There is a book that I have, and the title is The Anthology of World Religions.
Okay, yeah.
So it basically covers every potential claimant,
Right.
okay?
Yeah.
But they have got their own books,
For sure.
yeah?
Yeah.
So you have to go through all those. One by one as an elimination process, yeah? Because you have to look at what criteria this superior being has provided,
Right.
which automatically is not one that a human being or a collective group of human beings can actually meet. Yeah? Otherwise there wouldn't be any difference.
Right, okay.
And then you know for sure that this is a man-made construct.
Right. So, what convinces you that, let's say, Islam is not a man-made construct?
Right. Number one, the study of the book itself, okay? When you look at it not on a superficial level, yeah, look at the books in depth, my view is that the evidence speaks for itself,
Okay.
contained within the Quran. Yeah.
Right.
Now, I have done that with other books because what I necessarily did, if this message from on high has come, then the creator will have established a criteria wherewith to establish that this is not man-made.
Okay.
Yeah. So I looked at the biblical one, I looked at the other ones also. They also contain criteria.
Yeah.
Yeah. But using the criteria and assessing the evidence, they failed. The one that didn't was the Quran.
Okay.
Now, there is a standard here. However, I took it a bit further than that. If, for example, the Quran talks about, do you not consider the heavens? Do you not consider many things? The natural world.
Right.
Do you not consider the birds? How do they fly?
Okay.
Yeah? Now, as I'm reading all this, I'm also looking at what evidence is available through all the research that we human beings have done. Yeah? So if you look at physicists, you look at ornithologists, you look at experts in bird migration, yeah? You start looking at that evidence and it tells you, so for example, the European robin, yeah? It migrates, but what does it use to be able to go to where it needs to go? One, just as an example, you have got the shearwater bird, which traverses 8,000 miles. But these are fledglings, they've just been born. As soon as they learn how to fly, off they go. 8,000 miles in a sort of 8. Now the question is, how is this happening? A natural explanation is provided. That look, for example, the European robin, Professor slipped my mind. A professor has written a book in which he looks at how potentially these birds must be using the magnetic.
I've heard the theory. I know it.
You know
can sense the magnetic field of the Earth.
Exactly. But the magnetic field is not something that can be physically used by what we would consider to be natural selection. It cannot be utilized.
It might be able to.
Okay, tell me how.
Well, I'm not an expert.
No, of course, we are just having a
conversation. The premise, as I understand it, is that mutations cause random change, and if the random change gives a slight benefit, then it will be passed on, and that's the propagation of evolution.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure whether you agree with evolution or not, but
I can see, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you see, when you are talking about mutations themselves, yes, you are talking an internal change. But in order for that change to take place, the first thing that would have to be within the body of that particular bird is this connection with the magnetic field. How? Because you must remember that the magnetic field is so weak, that it has to be below what we would call the normal atomic level. So how?
Well, I would like to go this way.
Sure.
It's like this. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No problem.
Are you saying that if we can't prove this to be a part of nature, then it must have been from God?
No. I'm not God of the gaps. No.
Right. Okay.
No.
Well, that's good. We get that out the way.
That's out of the way.
Okay. So what is it?
Like I said, once I have established the message itself, I am also looking at the evidence it is saying to consider. So when it is talking about, look at how the birds fly. Well, how do they fly? The Creator is holding them up. Well, he's not literally holding them up, is he? What are the mechanics? There they go, those birds there. They are flying. What are the mechanics behind that? Now it is plain obvious that the Creator in the Quran is encouraging humanity to go and discover the natural world. There's an actual reason for this. The Quran then actually establishes for humanity, it says, we will show you on the horizons and within yourselves until it is manifest to you, this is the truth. Now, what is it actually saying? Are we as human beings going to get to a stage, bearing in mind that this is supposed to have been brought down 1,400 odd years ago, when it said, we will show you on the horizons and within yourselves that this is the truth. Now, what is it that we in the past 1,400 years have discovered about our internal workings? But it mentioned it. It says we human beings are going to do that. Why? Because this is what the Creator is intending for us. But having said that, it also says on the horizons. Now, the choice of word is odd. If me and you are looking here, what would be the horizon? It is the furthest point that we can see. But if we travel to there, what happens to the horizon?
The Earth's a sphere.
It moves away. So basically, a process of search and find, we are going to undertake as human beings, which is what we have done. But further that, like I said, if the Quran says, as an example, humanity, is the best that has been created. Amongst them, they are a group who are the best because they are attending to a particular system which is totally fair and totally just. But the question is this: if as human beings, I I was traversing the earth and I came across somebody who is not of my color, should I be aggressive with them? Now, there are instances in the Quran which I would consider to be far, far ahead of what we would call the time that it was revealed. So, as an example, it says, the Creator is the one who gave us our colors and our languages.
Okay.
What has that got to do with the price of fish? Why put a statement about colors and races and languages? Well, today in the United Kingdom, we have the Race Relations Act.
Okay.
Why was that brought into law? Because human beings, or based on color, were hating each other. Okay? Now, the Quran goes a bit further and it says, "O mankind," addressing the whole of humanity, "we have created you into nations and tribes," which we are. Yeah? We don't want to, but we are. We automatically seem to allay ourselves with the ones we are comfortable with for some odd reason. But these are why. It says, "O mankind, we have created you into nations and tribes so that you may respect each other and not despise each other." Now, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at the evidence, yeah, and it is all fitting. But there's a further step. You see, what I would call, for me, the clincher. My ability to reason has brought me to the stage, even if I say, for example, the theory of evolution, okay, in its physical form, has brought me to where I am today.
Okay.
Whether it be natural selection or any other method that has allowed me to come here today, as I was discussing with the lady earlier on, my ability, which we call the subconscious, okay, allows us very clearly to extend beyond what we would call the natural world.
Okay.
What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, I know that I can use the word, my essence tells me it is wrong.
Right.
The mechanics of the body are not telling me it is wrong. What is the essence that I have? What is that element of consciousness that I can't touch, I can't feel, but I know it is there?
Okay.
It has taken me one step further, and that step is the fact that I am going to die. Now, I am certain, looking at the evidence, that if I go through life, I get old, decrepit, can't move a muscle, can't move anything, yeah, all I will have is the memory, if it is still there. Otherwise, even that is going to disappear. Okay. The Quran interestingly states that, you know, we will grow you into a strong being, and then we will take you back as though you are going back to childhood. And this is what old age is doing to us. Yeah. Well, wait a minute, there's an extension to this, and the natural extension is that once I die, is that the end of me? My contention would be guaranteed no. Based on the current evidence that we possess, it is very clear that we do have something within us which potentially, it's neither here nor there, potentially is extending our life beyond what we would call the normal life. But you see, the issue then I faced, I'll finish, and I know you want to come back. The issue I face is a simple one. All this has already been confirmed in the Quran, and some of it, I looked at the evidence and the Quran confirmed it. So both ways, it clearly establishes that there is an intelligence behind everything that I can perceive, not only within my locality, but for as far as I can understand, or we collectively as human beings can discover.
Okay, right. Well, so you said that you have evidence for life extending after death.
No, I said it's either here or there. I said, look, I'm looking at my essence. Now, I just said to you, I can't touch it, I can't feel it, and we can't test it. But I know it's there. Yeah, but I know it is there.
Yeah.
What is it?
Right. I don't know.
You see, we all know, in the philosophy of language, in fact, in philosophy, you find the philosophy of consciousness. What is that? We have actually established there is something that goes beyond what we would call the mechanical aspect of human beings. What do I mean by that? Right now, everything we do, we can say our genes are telling us to do.
Yeah.
But the consciousness overrides this. So, what I mean by that is, if I knew that my death will lead to my children being saved or my family being saved, what would I do?
I'm not sure.
What do you think you would do?
It would depend on the circumstance, but self-sacrifice is what you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Is it within us?
I'm not sure what you mean.
For example, if a situation arose where the only option we have is to forego our life for the benefit of the others.
Right.
Do we have the capacity to do that?
Well, people do that.
They do, don't they? But then it is overriding this very idea of self-preservation.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
But why?
Well, you could look at the evolutionary reasons for self-sacrifice, for sure.
What for? Hi, it is working again.
Others, for the collective.
Excellent, but excellent. But now you see, you see, the problem is this: natural selection, blind, according to the understanding.
Right.
Natural selection, as Professor Richard Dawkins would say, is cruel, heartless. It does not think about anybody else. In his book, The Selfish Gene.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't think about anything except its self-preservation. Well, if that be the case, then you have to agree, and anybody else who is reasonable would have to agree that something that we possess is overriding this idea of self-preservation. What is that?
I'm not sure it's the strongest argument. Because,
not the strongest argument, one argument.
Well, because humans, we live in collectives. We're social creatures.
Who said?
Well, we are.
Who said?
I'm saying it. I can see it. I can see it in the world. I can observe it in all of history.
Right. Well, what about the monks who live a life isolated?
They take that choice.
But that means they have the ability to do that.
Sure, they have the ability to
choose.
Right.
Do we also have the ability to forego our lives?
By evidence, yes.
By evidence, yes. But then the very notion of self-preservation as contained in the idea of evolution and natural selection goes against it.
Well, it would depend. It would depend. You can have consciousness and the ability to choose, and we don't know how consciousness arose. I mean, this is it. We don't know how it arose. So it could be divinely influenced. I don't know.
Agreed.
But we're discovering. We're developing.
Excellent.
We don't know the structure of the mind.
True.
It's
agreed. No, I agree with you. But now you tell me, are you not agreeing with the Quran when the Quran is actually saying you will look on the horizons and within yourselves until it is manifest to you that this is the truth? So, the example we just used.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but I mean, you could look at it another way. You could look at it like, well, I haven't read the Quran, by the way, so I'm not educated in that. So
well, you are getting a present. Look, it's already ready. There you are. This is a present from me to you. Yeah?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, carry on.
So, can you hold that?
Yeah, please.
I like to move my hands.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
so just this is the idea that, I mean, if you have the Quran and you have the ideas in it and you've read it and understood it,
yes,
you might want to look for things in the world that prove it right. You know what I mean?
Agreed, but if you heard, absolutely. But if you heard me earlier on, I said I found things, I established it, and then when I looked at the Quran, it agreed with them.
Okay.
So it is no confirmation bias, although I agree with the point you made. You see, the thing is, and about the issue of confirmation bias, the Quran talks about principles. It doesn't go into the details.
Right.
Now, if you find the details matching the principle, would you just remove the idea from the mind, or would you dismiss it simply because you think it may be confirmation bias?
I'm not sure.
We wouldn't do that.
Anyway,
sure.
It's an interesting one. I mean, like I said, I haven't read it, so
no problem.
I've unfortunately only heard second-hand information.
Yeah, I understand.
And I imagine some of that might be inaccurate.
Yeah.
But I've heard people make the argument that the morality in the Quran might not be so relevant for the modern day. What do you think about that?
Right. Well, you see, if you look at the Quran, okay, as an example that we are using, it is meant to be for the whole of humanity from the time it was revealed. It basically contains all the necessary principles that human beings would require to live a life of what I would consider peace.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, at the same time, there is a reality that it faces. So, if I give you an example, in times gone by, it was normal for people to fight each other. Yeah? And when they fought each other, they had their own rules of what to do with what we would consider to be the ones that are vanquished.
Okay.
We call them prisoners. Yeah? At that time, they were not called prisoners, they were called slaves. Yeah? The winner takes all, and whatever they want to do, they did.
Okay.
In the midst of all this came the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and he laid down guidance for what you must not do when you go into battle and even after battle. Okay? At the same time, there was a reality on ground which was addressed, but at the same time, rules were then established to make sure what we would today consider to be not right, for example, slaves, yeah, directives were put in place to remove that. But it wasn't wholesale, suddenly let go of everything.
Okay.
Anyone who knows about how human beings and societies work would know how to slowly but surely remove something which is not good for society. As an example, in this country,
right,
yeah, you have laws, and then new laws are put into place which repeal the previous. But when those laws are actually formulated, they give a period of what you call transition.
Okay.
Why? Why the transition period? So that it makes it easy for the people to be able to adopt the law.
Okay.
The same thing happened with the Prophet when he came across issues. He made certain things. So for example, today, if somebody said, Shabir, you have gone into a battle, yeah, and you have won, would you take slaves? I would say no. There are certain rules that allow me to do certain things, but at the state level, the state has to govern what happens to any potential, what we would call today, prisoners of war.
Okay, but the state
Children,
today in UK, or are you meaning
no,
the state
no,
in
the
the
state.
past?
From the Islamic perspective we are talking.
Okay.
You know, you asked about the morality in the Quran. Well, what yeah, absolutely. Whatever is the diktat of the state, only the state has the authority to not only give instruction, but those can only be implemented after the state has determined so. So the idea that simple individuals can just do what they want is unacceptable, and Islam does not dictate for that.
Okay, so let's see. Now, again, maybe I'll be wrong with what I say because I don't know. But
No
what is the ideal society for Muslims? Is it it's based on the Quran?
Yes.
It's a theocracy?
No.
No?
No? No. You see, if we were, this is what I agree with the way you are looking at it, but let's remove the labels just for 1 minute.
Okay, but it's run on religious law. That's what
Now,
I mean.
you see, I'm a bit odd here, to be honest with you, brother.
Tell me.
I do not consider Islam as a religion.
Right.
Why? Because if I want to give Islam a name, then logic will dictate to me that what it says I ought to call it is what I should call it. Isn't it?
And what does it say?
It clearly says that Islam is a total system of life.
Okay.
Now the word religion doesn't actually fit into that. There are certain elements which can fall into the word religion, but they don't fall in totality. So yeah, so Islam actually talks about an ideal system. You know what you are mentioning? That ideal system, honestly I will tell you, since the time of its inception, 1400 odd years ago to today, if you were to, and this is an independent thing for you, brother, if you were to look at what Islam actually says about the governance of society, you will find a lot of it is already being implemented in the world.
Okay.
Yeah. So, for example, we are in the United Kingdom. I would probably think the best country in the world right now, okay, in terms of the facilities, in terms of how the government looks after its people, in terms of how it allows us freedom of movement, freedom of thought. Yeah, these are central to what Islam says a society should be, contrary to what a lot of people think.
I've heard the opposite.
Yeah, exactly, contrary to what a lot of people think.
I would like to say though,
Yeah, sure.
it might be the
Please don't just be open with me.
It's
Don't
my
worry,
style.
I'm glad.
So it might be quite obvious point to make, but you're saying it allows the freedom of ideas, or wants the freedom of ideas.
thought, yes.
What about criticizing Islam? You know
what? I'm sorry,
William.
King William. Surprisingly, the Quran actually demands that you criticize.
Okay.
Now, when I use the word criticize, even for our listeners, I am not saying it in a negative way.
Yeah.
What I am saying is Islam clearly, let me give you an example to make you understand. The Quran says in chapter 4 verse 82, do you not consider the Quran with care? Had it been from any other than the Creator, Allah, you'd have found therein many a discrepancy. Another place in chapter 2 verse 111, claims are made by people, in this particular instance Jews, Christians.
Right.
It says, Kul, say unto them, Hata burhanakum in kuntum sadiqin, produce your proof if you speak the truth. Now, how in the world are you going to establish proof if you are not going to look at the evidence and critically assess the evidence? So if somebody tells me, am I allowed to criticize Islam? I'll say, you know what, that is the best starting point.
Okay.
So no problem.
It might be a problem with the word choice that I used then.
No worries.
Because that is the correct way of describing it with criticism.
Yes.
So the other point that's very relevant in the modern world,
sure,
unfortunately, is
like
people who say things that could be considered offensive towards Islam.
Yes.
And how that seems to provoke quite a negative reaction all the time.
Amazingly, no, you are right, William. But you see, Muslims are like any other human being.
Yeah.
There are many who do not know, and there are many who do know. Sometimes the ones who do not know become very emotionally charged. Yeah. And when something is said in good faith, it is taken wrongly.
Yeah.
And so, what I would say, battle ensues. But oddly enough, the Quran goes the other way.
Right.
Yeah. The Quran says, if people are mocking,
right,
whether it is the Prophet or Islam, it instructs the people to walk away. This is the Quran.
Okay.
Amazingly, it is telling you when people are mocking.
Yeah.
But if people are genuinely criticizing, absolute freedom.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, so you see, if somebody comes here and tells me, you know what, your prophet was X, Y, and Z, I shouldn't really do that. He has an opinion.
For many reasons.
Absolutely. If you have a genuine reason for asking me, I am obliged to listen carefully and give you due respect and respond to it.
Yeah.
If you started mocking, like a lot of people do, I will say, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you. You are entitled to your opinion, and I would walk away.
Okay.
But I would never react in a negative way, because that is not what Islam tells us to do.
Okay. Well, that's definitely a good reflection upon yourself. Unfortunately, it's not for many people, and of course, not just Muslims. Many people, humans react in bad ways. I had a similar conversation previous week talking about freedom of speech, and the problem with it is that maybe many people don't think like you, I would say, and because what I would argue is that if people, okay, let's say you believe in Islam, you believe it's the truth of God, or however you conceptualize it.
Yes.
If somebody mocks it, and from my perspective, it should not faze you in one sense. You're like, I have the truth from God. What do you say to me? It doesn't mean anything.
Absolutely.
You can write or draw or do whatever you want.
Yes.
And I don't care.
Agreed.
That seems logical to me. But
Agreed.
Not for many people. Man.
But I agree
really
with you, William. But here is the reason. You see, the Prophet, peace be upon him, yeah, when there are instances recorded when he was worshipping the Creator, as Muslims we will bow down.
Yeah.
When he was doing that, they used to take entrails.
They threw it on him. I heard.
You are aware of
heard
that?
Yeah.
But what did he do?
Sure.
He didn't, right, come on, let's have a fight. No, he just removed them and carried on. In fact, it was one of his relatives who came and took it off.
Right.
But the question here is this: does it allow criticism? Yes, it does. Now, if you think about it, I referred to the Quran where it talks about mocking.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, if people were not going to mock, it wouldn't refer to it, would it?
Okay.
So, you are absolutely right. If you were here effing and blinding and, really being insulting,
Right.
yeah? As I said, Islam actually tells us when that is happening, walk away.
Right.
If you genuinely are asking me something, and in the process something which would be considered to be hurtful or offensive,
Yeah.
then it is my duty to tell you, actually, William, you may have misunderstood it. This is not what it is, this is what it is. This is what Islam actually instructs people to do.
Right.
But as you rightly pointed out, and I agree with you, unfortunately, there are many human beings, we call them Muslims also,
Yeah.
who will react very negatively
For sure.
when that is not what Islam actually says you must do.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Like
Yes.
I say, I need to educate myself on it, or
Guaranteed.
I can't comment.
Honestly,
So,
William, I will tell you something. Take the trouble to do that,
I will.
and I can genuinely tell you, you will not but agree with it.
we'll see.
A pleasure
conversation.
speaking to
Thank
you.
you, sir.
Anything untoward said, please do forgive me, William. Okay. Present to you, and please do come. We should be back in 3 or 4 weeks. Take the time. Oh, let me give you a card. If you have got any questions or anything, brother, that's my email address.
Okay.
Drop me a line anytime.
Thanks a lot.
And you are allowed to criticize.
Thank you. See you later.
Look after yourself, William.
Assalamu alaikum.
Oh, walaikum salam.
Long time, long time, brother.
Alhamdulillah. I
How
know.
have you